Before we start off today, I really want to thank people at the Dropout Prevention Network and explain a little bit, as Sam was saying, about the background that I've had. About almost 20 years ago, I was sitting in a office with my superintendent, my principal, and they were telling me that I needed to develop a district-wide alternative or dropout prevention strategy for a district with about 12,000 students at the time. And I didn't have the faintest idea of where to start. I had been a reading specialist for a number of years, and then a social studies teacher teaching in the low-level social studies classes. And this was even before the term at-risk was coined. If you don't know, that term came about 1986. And after being in the classroom for 5 or 6 years, we knew who the kids were. We knew what the behaviors were. We just hadn't put a label or a tag on it yet. Today, what I'd like to talk about a little bit as we start talking about future direction is talk a little bit about what is great teaching and what constitutes great teaching. Because one of the things that we have in this alternative ed area is the greatest challenge ahead of us that anybody has in a school. We have the kids who sometimes don't want to learn and sometimes who challenge us to bring things out of them. And a lot of times people have asked me over the years, they said, well, why do you work in alternative ed? Why have you gone over to be a superintendent? Why have you gone over to be a director of a private school or something? And it's just, this area gives you the greatest opportunity to affect change. And you affect change by being a great teacher. And for those of you who are teachers, working with kids in alternative ed every day, you really do have the ability to change lives every single day. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means as far as great teaching goes. I was thinking back on this, and we sometimes have a challenge with regard to technology and understanding the effect of technology. And I don't know if any of you, how many people here remember what a mimeograph machine is? Okay, so be careful what you wish for, because I remember being frustrated as a new teacher, because I have the distinction of probably being the world's worst typist, and I could never get through a whole mimeograph sheet without making about 38 errors and then having to go down and had all these little words with the little black spots in them or the purple spots in them whenever we were running them off. But you have to be careful what we wish for with regard to technology, because we have this opportunity to get a new technology introduced to us right now, and it was the photocopier students. And the introduction of the photocopier actually put us a step back, because a lot of people stopped teaching and started packetizing students. But I think in our environment, we really push this with our understanding of where students are. For those of you who are not familiar with this, basically the concept is that until the lower level needs are met, the higher level needs can't be attained. And for a lot of our students, when we're dealing with kids who are in the at-risk population, this physiological need expands, because physiological basically means, does the student have the ability to breathe? Are they existing in the world? And how many of us see kids that have conditions such as bipolar or substance abuse addiction, things that drive their physiological needs at a different level than what you would see with a regular student in a regular classroom? And we really can't move ahead until we know that those physiological needs are taken care of. A little bit on great teaching, and we all know this. Great teachers have frequent contact with kids. Now, we will talk about this in context, and what I'd like to do is have you think about this when we start talking about online learning, because we're going to be tying these two together. How's online learning support great teaching? And a lot of it has to do with frequency of contact that teachers have with students. Encouraging cooperative learning. How do we get kids to work together in a productive way to assist their learning? How do we get students actively involved in what they're learning? What kind of feedback do we get to students? I think back to Ed's piece. Ed had grading assistants, and his grading assistants would collect all the papers from the students, and they would give them back on Friday after the students had taken their weekly exam. He had it down like Ditto did. It was every day they had an assignment due, His grading assistants would grade them all, give them back to the kids on Friday, irregardless of what the students had learned or where their development was during the week. They would always get their results back on Friday. And then interestingly enough, they were the ones who were responsible for changing their behaviors to adapt to the new environment. Definitely not an example of great teaching. Another thing we do is we emphasize time on task. How much time are the kids really spending working on their assignments and being productive in the learning environment? We communicate high expectations. What do we really expect our students to learn? And are we maintaining the expectations and helping the students get there? This is one of the areas that I feel like we have a real challenge sometimes in education, is that we want to hold our expectations high, but some people don't realize or recognize their responsibility to help the students attain that level of expectation, because he took the time to realize that he was never going to master his swing, that every day that he went out there was always something that he could do. And we have to do that with our students too. You know, the end result is not passing the math class. The end result is getting the students to understand math, to engage in math, and understand what it means for them in their future. And too often we have that short-term goal of just passing this assignment, getting through this course, getting to the end of this particular road, and don't set the foundation for understanding that this is going to be a lifelong skill. So when we start looking at this online piece, and as we start looking at what the future is going to hold, we need to keep thinking about how do we drive autonomy, how do we drive mastery, how do we drive purpose and define purpose for our students to help them engage. And I can tell you from the time we've been doing the online environment, these are things that are becoming internal to what we do every single day. Facts, in case you don't know this, with regard to online learning and how it's moving right now, I'll tell you in Arizona real quickly, this year legislation was passed that will allow every school district and charter school in the state of Arizona to run its own online program and to get funding for students who are not physically sitting in seats in classrooms anymore. Every school district, every charter school in the state. In 2003, when we were designated as a statewide distance ed provider, there were 13 other programs designated with us. We have 2 legislators that are big proponents of the marketplace, and their philosophy is the marketplace will figure it out. The market will figure it out. Okay, how many here have ever taken an online class in your undergrad or graduate experience? Right now, we have less than 7% of the students in our high school level taking online courses. In the next 10 years, projection at current growth rate is 80% of the students in high school will have all or part of their course or courses in an online setting. This is what we're seeing across schools that we work with right now. Typically what we see is a lot of the programs in traditional public schools are funded in segmented pockets. And this is not a criticism, this is just a fact of life. And if anybody has ever gone through a program design, you know the programs are built around where the funding is. So what we do is we start to develop programs around where the funding pockets are, and sometimes those programs are not connected with each other. So we get a lot of segmentation. We're working with a school district out in Louisiana that had 43 different alternative ed programs in a district of 24,000 kids. And finally, what Pink says about purpose. Our purpose every single day is to help our kids be successful. We have the purpose, we have the drive. Those of us who have been working in this environment for years understand that we often work in isolation, we often work without the resources everyone else has. But everyone who works in alternative ed is willing to pay that price because we see the benefit of what we do with every student we work with every single day. And that's the challenge that we have, to create disruptive innovation, to be autonomous, be masters of our environment, and always keep in mind our purpose of helping our students be successful every single day. On behalf of everyone here, I'd like to thank you for your time and attention this morning. Appreciate again the people at NDPN for bringing us here and being such great supports for us over time. And wish you a great conference and a good time the rest of the day. Thank you.